In the infinite journey of the soul, few transitions are as misunderstood as what happens when one chooses to end their physical existence prematurely. Edgar, through his remarkable psychic readings, revealed profound insights into this delicate spiritual matter that deserve our compassionate attention. According to the readings, when someone takes their own life, they don't escape their suffering. They experience a different kind of awakening. The soul, suddenly freed from its physical vessel, encounters an immediate and often shocking realization. Consciousness doesn't end. The awareness doesn't diminish. Instead, it expands in unexpected ways. This first stage of the journey is characterized by a profound disorientation. The soul discovers that the pain it sought to escape hasn't vanished. It has merely transformed. The emotional and mental anguish that led to such a drastic decision doesn't disappear in the transition. Rather, it continues in a realm where time and perception operate differently. The initial awakening brings confusion as the soul realizes it still exists, still feels, still remembers. There is often a period of denial, a desperate clinging to the belief that consciousness should have ended. Many spirits describe floating near their physical bodies, witnessing the aftermath of their actions, unable to communicate with those left behind, creating a new form of isolation and helplessness. This state isn't imposed as divine punishment. It's simply the natural consequence of the soul's continued existence beyond physical death. The universal spiritual laws continue to operate, regardless of how one transitions from this world. Just as throwing a stone into water creates ripples whether one intended to or not, ending one's life creates specific energetic patterns in the soul's journey. The awakening is further complicated by the soul's encounter with its own higher awareness. In this expanded state of consciousness, the spirit begins to perceive the larger spiritual plan that was in place for its life, the lessons that were meant to be learned, the growth that was meant to occur, the connections that were meant to be formed or strengthened. This glimpse of what could have been creates a unique form of regret that is distinct from earthly remorse. During this phase, the soul also encounters what Edgar described as thought forms, energetic manifestations of one's deepest fears, regrets, and unresolved emotions. These thought forms can feel overwhelmingly real, creating environments that mirror the emotional state that preceded the suicide. This isn't punishment, but rather the natural expression of how our consciousness shapes our experience in more fluid spiritual realms. The initial awakening is also characterized by time distortion. What may seem like an eternity to the soul might be merely moments in earthly time. This distortion creates a space where the soul begins to process the magnitude of its decision outside the limitations of physical time constraints. Perhaps most poignantly, many souls report experiencing the full impact of their departure on loved ones. They witness the grief, confusion, anger, and pain of those left behind, but without the ability to comfort or communicate effectively. This helpless witnessing becomes part of the awakening process, understanding the ripple effects of our most personal decisions. Yet even in this challenging beginning, there are glimmers of the compassionate spiritual order that governs all souls. Guides and helpers are always present, though the soul's own confusion and distress may initially prevent it from perceiving this assistance. Like a person in a dark room, unable to see the rescuers with flashlights just outside, the soul gradually becomes aware that it is not abandoned. The initial awakening, while difficult, serves an important purpose in the soul's eternal journey. It creates the foundation for the deeper understanding that will follow. It establishes the reality that consciousness is continuous, that our decisions have consequences beyond what we can perceive from an earthly perspective, and that there is purpose and meaning even in our most desperate moments. This awakening, painful though it may be, is the first step toward healing, not punishment, but the beginning of a new phase of soul education. It represents the universe's unwavering commitment to every soul's growth, even when that soul has temporarily lost sight of its own value and purpose. In the second phase of the spiritual journey after suicide, the soul enters what could be called a state of profound self-reflection. This isn't imposed as punishment from external forces, but emerges naturally as part of the soul's healing process. According to Edgar's readings, the soul begins to revisit the moment of its decision repeatedly, not as torment, but as a necessary contemplation for understanding and eventual liberation. This repeated encounter with one's own act occurs in a dimension where time is fluid and consciousness more expansive than during physical life. The soul experiences a panoramic review, not only of the final moments, but of the entire emotional and spiritual landscape that led to that critical decision. It's as if the universe provides a spiritual mirror reflecting not just actions, but intentions, fears, hopes, and the complex web of energies that culminated in the choice to depart physical existence. During this phase, the soul observes its own journey with increasing clarity. What begins as painful recognition gradually transforms into deeper understanding. The soul witnesses not just what happened, but why it happened, seeing clearly the accumulated pain, the moments of disconnection from hope, the gradual withdrawal from life's purpose that created the conditions for such a momentous decision. This isn't a process designed to increase suffering. Rather, it's a compassionate spiritual mechanism allowing the soul to integrate what it couldn't process while overwhelmed in physical form. Free from the limitations of the physical brain's chemistry and the body's exhaustion, the soul can now perceive the larger patterns that were invisible before. Edgar's readings indicate that this review serves several profound purposes. First, it helps the soul understand that suicide wasn't simply a single decision made in isolation, but the culmination of many smaller choices, thoughts, and emotional responses. This recognition is crucial for healing, as it shifts the focus from self-condemnation to deeper self-knowledge. Second, this reflective process reveals the spiritual assistance that was available but perhaps not recognized during physical life. Many souls report becoming aware of guidance, synchronicities, and potential turning points that went unnoticed amid their suffering. This awareness doesn't increase regret, but rather expands understanding of the soul's journey and the ever-present support of the spiritual realms. Third, and perhaps most importantly, these repeated encounters with one's own act gradually transmute the energy of self-judgment into compassion. The soul begins to see its actions not as unforgivable failure, but as the outcome of genuine suffering, suffering that deserves understanding rather than condemnation. This shift marks a crucial turning point in the soul's healing journey. During this phase, the soul also begins to perceive how its action fits within the larger pattern of its soul development across multiple lifetimes. What seemed like an isolated act of desperation is revealed to be connected to deeper soul lessons, karmic patterns, and spiritual growth opportunities that span beyond a single lifetime. This expanded perspective doesn't diminish the importance of physical life, but places it within a cosmic context of ongoing evolution. The encounter with one's own act also involves what Edgar described as meeting the consequences. The soul experiences the ripple effects of its departure on loved ones, not as punishment, but as a necessary understanding of interconnectedness. This can be intensely painful, yet it's accompanied by growing awareness that such pain is part of the soul's education about the profound connections between all beings. As this reflective phase progresses, the soul gradually moves from being consumed by the experience to observing it with increasing detachment and compassion. What begins as immersion in emotional intensity slowly transforms into clarity. The soul begins to separate its eternal essence from the act itself, recognizing that while the action was real and consequential, it doesn't define the soul's ultimate identity or destiny. Through this repeated encounter with its decision, the soul eventually reaches what might be called emotional completion, not forgetting or dismissing what happened, but fully processing it. This completion doesn't erase the experience, but integrates it into the soul's broader understanding, transforming it from an open wound to a source of profound wisdom. This phase concludes when the soul no longer feels energetically bound to the moment of its decision. The repeated revisiting gradually loses its emotional charge, not through denial but through complete processing. The soul has extracted the essential learning from the experience and is ready to move toward healing and renewal. It's important to understand that this encounter with one's own act unfolds in a realm where love is the fundamental reality. Even at its most challenging, this process occurs within what Edgar described as the mercy of the Creator. The universe doesn't abandon souls during this difficult passage. but holds them in a field of compassion that ultimately ensures every soul finds its way back to wholeness, regardless of the paths it has walked. After the soul has fully encountered and processed the act of suicide, it enters what Edgar's readings described as a period of spiritual healing and re-education. This phase represents a profound shift from retrospection to restoration, as the soul is gradually enfolded in the compassionate embrace of higher spiritual forces. This healing doesn't begin abruptly, but emerges organically as the soul becomes receptive. When the initial shock and the intensive self-reflection have served their purpose, beings of light and spiritual guides, what some traditions call angels, ascended masters, or simply souls of advanced evolution, approach with perfect timing. These entities don't impose their presence, but wait until the soul can perceive and accept their assistance. The healing environment created for the soul is not a physical place, but a vibrational state tailored specifically to that individual's needs. Edgar described these healing spaces as temples of light or gardens of renewal, where the soul's fragmented energies can be gently reintegrated. These environments appear differently to each soul based on what brings them comfort. Some perceive landscapes of serene beauty, others experience them as sanctuaries of music and harmony, while still others find themselves in libraries of wisdom where understanding flows freely. The first stage of this healing process involves what might be called energetic restoration. The act of suicide creates distinctive patterns of disruption in the soul's energetic field, areas of fragmentation, depletion, or distortion. Higher beings skilled in spiritual healing work directly with these energy patterns, not erasing the experience but helping to reorganize and balance the soul's vibrational makeup. This healing occurs through what Edgar described as light transmissions, direct transfers of harmonious energy that help restore the soul's natural resonance. Alongside this energetic healing comes emotional restoration. The accumulated pain, despair, self-judgment, and confusion that led to suicide require compassionate attention. Specialized healing entities help the soul process these emotions, not by removing them, but by teaching the soul how to transform them. The soul learns to convert despair into hope, self-judgment into self-compassion, and confusion into clarity through alchemical spiritual processes that respect the soul's free will at every stage. This emotional healing is not passive. The soul actively participates in its own restoration, gradually reclaiming its spiritual sovereignty. As healing progresses, the soul begins to reconnect with its own inner light, that spark of divine essence that remains untouched, even by the most difficult experiences. This reconnection is often described as a remembering, the soul remembering its true nature beyond the temporary forgetting that occurred during its darkest moments. The re-education aspect of this phase is equally important. The soul receives not punishment, but instruction tailored to its specific needs. This education addresses the thought patterns, belief systems, and spiritual disconnections that contributed to its crisis. Some souls need to learn about their inherent worth beyond external achievements. Others require understanding about the impermanent nature of suffering. Still others need education about the resources and connections available to all beings, even in their darkest moments. This spiritual curriculum isn't delivered through abstract lectures, but through experiential learning. The soul may be guided through simulated experiences, where it can practice new responses to challenges similar to those it faced in physical life. It may observe other souls who have successfully navigated similar difficulties. It may even experience compressed versions of potential futures that illuminate different choices and their outcomes. Throughout this education, the soul retains complete free will, absorbing what resonates and setting aside what doesn't yet make sense. A crucial element of this phase involves what Edgar called purpose restoration. Many souls who commit suicide have lost connection with their sense of meaning and purpose. During healing, these souls are gently reminded of their unique gifts, the specific contributions they came to make, and the soul agreements they established before incarnation. This renewal of purpose becomes a powerful healing force, rekindling the soul's desire to continue its journey. As healing progresses, the soul gradually expands its awareness beyond its own experience to understand the larger spiritual principles at work. it begins to perceive how even this difficult passage fits into its broader evolution. What initially seemed like failure or catastrophe is slowly recognized as a painful but potentially transformative chapter in an eternal journey. This expanded perspective doesn't trivialize the experience, but places it within a cosmic context of ongoing growth and learning. An important aspect of this healing phase involves the restoration of connections. The soul is helped to maintain and heal its relationships with loved ones who remain in physical form, as well as those who have transitioned to spirit. While direct communication may be limited by vibrational differences, the soul learns how love transcends these barriers and how connections of the heart remain unbroken across dimensions. As the soul progresses through this healing curriculum, it gradually moves from being a recipient of care to becoming a participant in its own restoration. The soul begins to generate its own healing light, to make choices that accelerate its recovery, and to contribute to the healing of others when appropriate. This increasing empowerment marks significant progress as the soul reclaims its creative capacity and spiritual agency. The conclusion of this phase isn't marked by forgetting what happened, but by integration and transcendence. The soul carries forward the wisdom gained from its experience without being defined or limited by it. The healing doesn't erase the past, but transforms it into a foundation for new understanding. As Edgar's readings emphasized repeatedly, there is no experience, however painful, that cannot ultimately be transmuted into wisdom when approached with love and proper guidance. The final phase of the soul's journey after suicide involves what Edgar described as the law of return, not as punishment, but as cosmic rebalancing. This spiritual principle operates not through judgment, but through the perfect wisdom of universal love, creating opportunities for the soul to complete unfinished lessons and restore its evolutionary momentum. After healing and re-education in the spiritual realms, the soul eventually faces important choices about its continued journey. For many souls, this includes the possibility of returning to physical existence, not as penalty, but as opportunity. Edgar's readings consistently emphasized that reincarnation is never forced. Rather, it represents the soul's own recognition that certain experiences can be most effectively integrated through physical life. The soul, having gained perspective and strength in the spiritual dimensions, often chooses to re-enter the material plane to complete what was left unfinished. This return operates according to precise spiritual principles. The soul, with the guidance of advanced beings and its own higher awareness, selects life circumstances that provide optimal opportunities for growth in precisely the areas where development was interrupted. If a soul departed physical life due to feelings of worthlessness, it might choose experiences that challenge and ultimately transform those beliefs. If disconnection from others contributed to its crisis, it might arrange relationships that foster deeper understanding of belonging and community. What makes this process remarkable is its fundamental compassion. The law of return isn't about punishment, but completion. The soul doesn't choose difficult circumstances to pay for previous choices, but to fulfill its own deeper aspirations for growth. Each soul intuitively understands that love, not suffering, is the ultimate purpose of existence, and that any temporary discomfort serves the greater goal of spiritual expansion. The soul approaching reincarnation after suicide often chooses what Edgar called compensatory circumstances, situations that may appear challenging from an earthly perspective, but actually represent perfectly calibrated opportunities. These might include relationships with souls encountered in previous lives, particularly those affected by the suicide. Such reunions allow for healing on multiple levels, as souls work together to transform old patterns and create new possibilities for connection and understanding. Importantly, the soul doesn't return with full conscious memory of its previous experiences. Such complete recall would interfere with the learning process and potentially overwhelm the developing personality. Instead, the soul carries what might be called wisdom imprints, subtle intuitive knowledge that guides it toward choices aligned with its deeper purpose, even without conscious awareness of the larger plan. Edgar's readings revealed that souls who have experienced suicide often develop extraordinary compassion in subsequent lifetimes. Having known profound suffering, they frequently become sensitive to others' pain and develop natural abilities to offer comfort and understanding. What once seemed like irreversible spiritual damage transforms into unique gifts of perception and healing. This represents the universe's remarkable capacity to transmute even the most difficult experiences into sources of light. This brings us to what Edgar described as the hidden purpose of pain in the soul's eternal journey. Throughout his thousands of readings, Edgar consistently emphasized that suffering, while never the primary goal of existence, serves essential purposes in soul development. The pain experienced before, during, and after suicide contains within it seeds of profound spiritual awakening when approached with the right understanding. First, pain serves as a powerful teacher of compassion. Souls who have experienced deep suffering develop an expanded capacity to recognize and respond to others' pain. This compassion becomes not just an emotional response, but a spiritual perception, the ability to truly see others beyond surface appearances and connect with their essential being. Second, difficult experiences accelerate the soul's detachment from materialistic values and superficial pursuits. Having encountered the limitations of physical existence in such a profound way, the soul often develops deeper discrimination between transient pleasures and lasting spiritual values. This shift in perspective represents significant evolutionary progress. Third, the journey through suicidal crisis and its aftermath ultimately strengthens the soul's connection to divine source. Many souls report that after the complete cycle of experience, from despair through healing to renewed purpose, they develop a more direct and unshakable awareness of their spiritual nature. What began in disconnection often concludes in deeper connection to the underlying unity of all existence. Edgar's readings repeatedly emphasize that souls are never lost. No matter how challenging the path, each soul remains eternally held within the divine consciousness, always with the potential for return to wholeness. The universe operates not through rejection, but through persistent, patient invitation, continuously offering opportunities for healing and growth until they are ultimately accepted. As the soul completes its healing journey, whether through spiritual integration alone or through subsequent physical lives, it eventually arrives at what Edgar called the reconciliation. This represents the soul's full acceptance and integration of its entire experience, including the suicide. The event is neither forgotten nor diminished in importance, but it no longer carries emotional charge or spiritual disruption. It has been transformed into wisdom. At this stage, the soul experiences what might be called spiritual graduation. Having completed the specific lessons associated with this challenging passage, it becomes available for new forms of growth and service. Many souls who have successfully integrated this experience choose to assist others facing similar challenges, becoming what some traditions call wounded healers, beings whose own healing journey enables them to guide others with unique understanding. The mercy of spirit, as Edgar emphasized repeatedly, is infinite in its patience and perfect in its wisdom. The universal forces never abandon any soul, regardless of its choices. The divine light continues to shine, even when temporarily obscured by the clouds of suffering or confusion. The promise of this light, the absolute assurance of eventual homecoming for every soul, stands as the ultimate spiritual reality beyond all temporary experiences of separation or pain. In closing, let us remember Edgar's most essential teaching on this subject. Love remains the fundamental reality of the universe, the source from which we come and to which we all ultimately return. Even the most challenging spiritual journeys unfold within this boundless field of love, which ensures that no experience, however difficult, is ever wasted and no soul is ever truly lost. If these teachings have touched your heart or illuminated your path, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Your subscription supports the sharing of this timeless wisdom with others who may be searching for understanding during life's darkest moments. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective may be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. Remember that in sharing our spiritual journeys, we create a community of healing where no one walks alone. Subscribe now and join us on this exploration of life's deepest mysteries, where together we discover that even in our most challenging moments, we are never truly lost.